Yo, what is up guys? This is TiensiNoAkuma's here with another Katarina guide. It has been about a year since my last Katarina guide, so that means some things are outdated. Now, some things to take note, this guide is specific to Katarina only. That means things such as fort pot baiting and learning when to roam are things that can be applied to any other champion and will usually be covered in my tips and tricks videos. Alright, so without further ado, let's begin. So let's start off with my basic preferences. I prefer to play Cat as the glass cannon type champion. High damage output with low survivability. Basically, Katarina is a high risk for high reward champion. That means a single mistake can make you completely useless, but a well-timed combination can turn a game completely around. There's little room for mistake with my builds, so I suggest that you buy tankier items on Katarina until you get a general idea of how she is played. So runes, masteries, and items. Because of all the changes that are going on, they're sometimes buffing champions, changing champions, giving you items, changing items, nerfing items, new runes, new masteries, etc, etc. Because this keeps happening, I'm not going to be giving a specific mastery rune and item build. I will be giving you guys a general idea of how I want my runes and masteries and items to be. And any of the items and masteries and runes that I am currently using will be in the description box below. So check it out over there. For masteries, I prefer to get as much points in offense as possible and then get some points in defense. The reason why is because this would provide Cat for high damage output while giving her some early game tankiness, which is what she needs because she's very weak early game and has to be able to take a hit. For runes, I prefer to run Magic Pen Reds. I'm pretty sure Magic Pen Reds will always stay the same as a necessary rune forever on Cat until they completely change the game. But besides that, the rest of the runes are made specifically to make up for Katarina's weaknesses. For example, her low early game damage output and low early game tankiness. Cat is a very easy champion to harass early game because she is a melee character. Having some tanky runes and masteries can let you take hits while you farm creep. As I have said before, items are always changing, so I won't give you guys a specific item build, but I will give you guys a general idea of how I like to build Katarina. I like to play her as a glass cannon. That means my general build will consist of boots, 3 offensive items such as Rabadon Deathcap, Deathfire Grasp, and Void Staff, 1 defensive item such as Guardian's Angel, and 1 hybrid defensive offensive item such as Hourglass or Abyssal Scepter. Now, the reason why I like this build is because Katarina still has to sit in a team fight for a certain amount of time to deal damage, regardless of whether or not she is a glass cannon or not. Thus, this is why she still needs a few defensive items, especially late game. For my skill order, I prefer to max R, Q, W, E in that order. The reasoning behind this is because Katarina's Bouncing Blades does a higher burst damage, gives easier harass and safer farming than Katarina's W does. I'm looking to burst the enemy down in 1 combination and get out, not sit in a fight and spam spells until I die. The clearing power of Q and W are the same at level 7 once you pick up items like a blasting wand. Katarina's Shunpo doesn't scale aside from minimal damage and cooldown, so it's not worth maxing first. Katarina's W requires a certain distance in order to be used. This distance can be dangerous. It either puts you too far up in the lane for an easy gank, or it puts you within the harass range of your enemy. So let's start off now with combinations. You can add your Deathfire Grasp, Ignite, Ultimate to these combinations, but I'll just give you guys the most basic of these combinations. The first combination is QEW. This is your standard combination if you want to harass your enemy or if you want to kill your enemy, because it deals the most amount of damage within the shortest amount of time. Your next combination is EQW. This is your chasing combination. Because your Shunpo has a longer range than your Q, and it also lets you get right next to your enemy, this is what you usually want to use when you're trying to chase after your enemy. The third combination is Q plus W. This is usually a harassing combination that you would use in lane. Also, you would be saving your Shunpo just in case you get ganked or so you can dodge skill shots. Your last combination is a variation of your second and third combination. You E onto a nearby target next to your enemy, and then you Q and W them. Usually you would use this if you can't catch up to your enemy. So next up we have phases. First off, of course, is lane phase. Katarina has an extremely weak lane phase. She has no sustain and her trading potential is a little bit limited. Now during this phase, your most important job is to get gold and items. Without them, it'll be impossible to be a high threat in teamfights, which is exactly where Katarina shines. If you're able to win your lane, as in you're beating your enemy and zoning them out, focus on building offensive items or hybrid offensive/defensive items to keep your advantage. So there are 3 different types of champions Katarina can play against. The first type are champions that are tanky and also have sustain. Some examples of this are Cho'Gath, Lee Sin, and Xin Zhao. Against these champions, you shouldn't waste your time harassing them. Just farm. If you try to harass them, they're just going to heal up whatever damage you deal to them, and it's going to be a waste of skills and time. But if you're able to get a jungler to come and gank, then yes, you might have the chance to take him out. The second kind of champions you can play against are mages with limited sustain potential. Some examples of this are Orianna and Ahri. What you can do against them is harass them with Q and W. Especially at early levels, their damage output and mana are limited until they pick up actual items. So before this happens, which is usually before level 6, Katarina can completely zone them out and harass them out of lane. But after level 6, you should definitely become a lot more passive and stop trying to harass them, because they will definitely be able to outtrade you. The last type of champion you can play against are mages, or just champions with limited harassing power. Some examples of this are Karthus and Morgana. The thing about them is that they are easy to harass and they can't really exchange attacks back toward you. Especially against Morgana, you can dodge her Qs with your Shunpo. Against Karthus, if he tries to wall of pain you down, you can easily Shunpo out of that. All you have to do is just harass them with Q and W all day until they're low enough to be killed. Again, be careful not to push too hard, otherwise you will be destroyed by the enemy jungler. So long as you save your Shunpo, you'll be fine. Now, if you're against a champion that you aren't familiar with, or you're playing against a player who you know is very good at the game and you don't think you can beat them out by yourself, then just be passive and wait for them to make a mistake. So after lane phase is of course mid game. Mid game is where Katarina shines the most. At this point in time, she does the most amount of damage and she is tanky enough so the enemy can't kill her immediately. This is when usually champions are starting to take objectives and small skirmishes are beginning, such as group turret pushing or dragon. Your job is to kill the highest priority targets. Of course, if there's an easy kill to pick up on a less prioritized target like supports or tanks, go ahead since your skills will reset. Late game is basically the same thing as mid game, except it's a lot more difficult. Katarina is much weaker now, and she's a lot easier to kill by the enemy. So your job is still the same, kill the highest priority targets, which usually now should be the AD carry. Last but not least, we have general tips. The first most general tip is Katarina's ultimate. It's a very versatile thing. Well, it lights up whenever a target is near, regardless of whether or not you can see them or not. Take note that this applies to stealth champions as well. AoE spells do not reveal when you cast through Fog of War, which means that your enemy will not be able to see you when you ult. Keep an extra ward handy for ward jumping. Just keep in mind that the ward range is not that large, so you need to know how far you can jump with your ward. You can also hop onto creep to get into your lane faster. Avoid using Shunpo when you're in a dangerous situation. It is your primary form of escape. This is even more prevalent in lane when you don't know where the enemy jungler is. Timing. When you're running into a 5v5 or a 4v4 fight, especially late game, only go in when you can guarantee a kill or if the enemy is isolated. The more enemies there are, the easier it is for them to kill you. Anything less than a 4v4, you can harass them down and go in when you can guarantee a good ult or a kill. Thanks for watching. I hope you guys enjoyed that. If you guys want to see more, please like and subscribe to my YouTube channel. Also check out my Facebook page for any updates and whatnot. And also my stream, which I try to do every single day unless there's something going on. So yeah, bye!